What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. The world of Pokémon is filled with little details that don't have to be there, but they always make it feel more real when you learn about them. This can range to be as trivial as a Spheal clapping for you when you do a spinning trick in Pokémon Sword and Shield, to as profound as finding out that Oddish has a scientific name of Odium Wanderus. So does that mean that there are such classifications for all different Pokémon? Is that what the Paradox forms are named after? But perhaps the most impressive bits of trivia that help to enrich the Pokémon world are when you find out unsuspecting connections between seemingly random Pokémon. I mean, we all know that Rhyperior can accidentally shoot out Geodude from its cannons on occasion, rocketing them out of its palms, but I'm more interested in the less obvious connections, such as Chansey in the anime. During the Pikachu short before the second film, the movie 2000, Chansey pulls out the egg from its pouch, and that egg is an Execute, a singular one that jumps in with the others, and only then can it evolve when there are 6 of them. So do all Chansey house Execute until they're done incubating, and only then can they join in with the others to make the singular organism? So unique relationships like that are fun to discover. However, maybe the anime isn't the best source to look at, so let's stick to the games, where we can find out a lot about the Pokémon food chain, like how apparently Caracosta used to eat Omastar. These are both water types that are found in the ancient oceans, so we know that they were in the same area, but I'm not sure how they know what their diet used to be, unless they found a cover fossil with an Ammonite in the stomach. Or hopefully that's not still happening today in trainer battles. Ugh. But far more interesting to me from the oceans was Lumineon. We already know that it's sometimes referred to as the Beautifly of the sea, but that's not the connection that I care about. Apparently, these unassuming fish eat Starmie. I thought they would just snack on seaweed or something, not other sentient life forms. And besides, Lumineon seems so much weaker than Starmie in battle in pretty much every way, so it's pretty hard to imagine these ordinary fish ever tearing one apart limb from limb. A more off-the-wall connection that still involves food is that apparently Galarian Darumaka likes to eat the berries that come off of Snover. Oh, also Snover produces berries sometimes, even though it's not obvious in the gameplay at all. However, with the snowy Darumaka living in the same environment, it would make sense that they overlap in some way. However, this seems to go beyond just collecting a few berries that have naturally fallen off, because evidently Abomasnow has to chase away large groups of Galarian Darumaka that go after Snover, presumably because they would accidentally destroy them in an overzealous fit of hunger at worst, or simply capture the Snover and force them to grow the berries for their pleasure at best, as if Snover didn't have enough problems already. However, another similar situation actually happens around Durant. We all know of their historic rivalry with Heatmore, but did you know that allegedly Durant has to guard their eggs against Sandaconda as well? This seems to track because ants do live underground, and Sandaconda would be able to burrow around to find their nests and steal the eggs for a meal. However, that does make me feel bad for Durant a lot more, because not even the children are safe. If they aren't getting melted by a dirty anteater, then they've got to avoid getting swallowed whole by a snake before they're even born. Man, these guys sure have it rough. Now, I don't know that this one is eating, necessarily, but sources say that Trubbish is pursued by multiple Pokémon. While a bag of garbage isn't very appetizing to us, firstly, we find them being followed in the Galar region by the regional form of Weezing. This dapper blob of pollution is said to consume noxious gases, so it likes to trail behind Trubbish and soak up all of those horrid smells that come off of it, almost in a symbiotic relationship. However, less wholesome is when Trubbish gets chased in Alola by the regional form of Grimer. And considering the Alolan forms are said to eat garbage, that could be quite dangerous for our trashy little friend, and leave Trubbish as no more than one of their crystal teeth. But we can always hope that their cleansing wouldn't be fatal for them, so maybe Alolan Grimer just makes them clean enough for humans to be around. But then I guess Galarian Weezing might have something to say. However, one of the most impressive examples of the food chain at work, to me, has got to be Weavile. In Gen 7, it's said to eat Alolan Vulpix and Sandshrew, which it's hard to imagine them ever going after those little cuties, but beyond that, they describe their hunting methods to be quite devious. Basically like the raptors in Jurassic Park, splitting apart to distract their prey and then striking with precision, even flipping over Sandshrew like a turtle to make it helpless. But even more harrowing is that even a Mamoswine, quote, easily easily falls to the teamwork of Weavile, so for anyone left wondering why these Pokemon might be part Dark-type, they can be truly vicious in the wild. But animals don't always clash over food. Sometimes there's a territorial dispute, like how apparently when Basculin shows up in waterways, they clear out everything except for Corphish and Crawdaunt because they're so tough, yet the so-called Thug of the River can in turn be overpowered by different Pokemon like Dondozo or Bombardier. However, what stuck out to me that I didn't know about was the rivalry that Thievul had with multiple Pokemon. The deck says that the Devious Fox fights against Boltund as its natural enemy, I suppose because of British hunting tradition, so that would make sense, but Thievul is also stated to fight Liepard over Territory. That one even goes down to its base stages with Nickit and Purloin fighting as well, so they have a rivalry all throughout their lives. I guess Thievul makes a lot of enemies by stealing things all the time, since everyone's against them. But even though it's not stated, I could absolutely see Liepard and Boltund having their own animosity for each other too, since we know how cats and dogs behave. So this is like a triple blood feud going on here in the Galar region, but really it all makes sense when you think about it. Another one that surprised me a bit was another three-directional relationship, starting with Sableye and Carbink. You may know that the little ghost gremlin thing likes to eat gemstones, but it seems that Gabite has a similar diet because they will fight Sableye out in the wild if they want the same Carbink. And honestly, that is a fight that I would love to see. It's somehow a relatively even match from two medium-strong Pokemon with totally different types that have no special relation to each other, while the poor Carbink just tries its best to flee for its life. But the good news is that Carbink's Fairy type would beat them both, so despite its low speed, at least it has a chance at making it out unscathed. Another rivalry that I never would have thought about is that of Tarantula and Scyther. Have you ever even thought of these Pokemon together at the same time? I know I haven't, but allegedly Tarantula's thread is strong enough to repel Scyther's blades, and it is called Tarantula's natural enemy. I mean, they're barely even in the same environments to interact at all, but I'm just wondering what beef they could possibly have with each other. I mean, comparatively, Scyther is huge, so why would they even bother with a small Tarantula? Unless they make unseen giant webs that Scyther accidentally flies into and gets stuck. I could see that as being pretty annoying, maybe not enough to hurt them, but my guess is that Scyther wants to eat Tarantula, or it could just be that Spidops likes to spar against the Flying Mantis, but this card makes me think that Scyther might just be on the menu too. Now, you're probably aware of the hostility between Rattata and Yungoos since they were brought in to deal with the outbreak of these Alolan forms, but that's not the only regional rodents that they're able to take care of. While the feud with Rattata might get all the press, Gumshoos is also said to hunt Squavit in the Galar region, so it seems that they have a specialty here. However, Squavit is described as simple-minded, which can be endearing to some, but apparently it's not enough of a sport for Gumshoos. Evidently, it likes a bit more of a challenge, so it seems to like to play with its food in a slightly vindictive manner. Yet somehow the Alolan rats are the ones that get the dark type added. And while I don't know that Rattata and Squavit have any specific grievances with each other, that does make for a fascinating trio of very similar Pokemon, making me wonder what other tropes secretly hate each other. What's that? Talonflame eats Pikipek? Okay, never mind, I don't want to know. But let's check out a more wholesome example of Pokemon synergy. We've seen pocket monsters work together before, sometimes in unintended ways, like when you combine the cotton from both Cottony and Eldegoss, it apparently makes the most comfortable and luscious fabric ever produced by humans. However, the most unexpected connections to me are probably with the Pokemon Dwebble, Hippowdon, and Drapion. Three seemingly random creatures that I would never pair together, but for those that don't know, evidently Hippowdon gets rocks stuck in its sand ports on occasion. I guess because they just suck up sand with their feet like a vacuum maybe, and accidentally get other things sometimes. But if those rocks stayed in there, it would greatly hinder the sand that it could pump out. So luckily for Hippowdon, they have Dwebble around. These little bug types poke around Hippowdon's ports and remove the rocks. This not only creates a symbiotic relationship, but it mirrors real-life hippos and the birds that clean them off. So just like those birds benefit from this, the Dwebble also gain new potential homes that they could use by removing the rocks, while Hippowdon gets to have working sand blasters, so it's a win-win. I wonder if Sandaconda gets this same deal. But as I said, this is only one angle of the interactions connections at play because we have Drapion in the picture as well. While often seen as aggressive, even being nicknamed the Sand Demon, you might think that Drapion is the apex predator in the desert realm. However, this ogre scorpion is said to be scared of Hippowdon. Simply the presence of the sand hippo is enough for Drapion to look the other way, and Drapion is said to never be the one to pick a fight, despite its ordinarily brutal demeanor. So I'm sure that this is another reason that Dwebble hangs around, so that it can have protection against Drapion, because apparently just being near Hippowdon is enough to send Drapion slinking away with its tail between its legs. Honestly, that is a fight that I would love to see, with Hippowdon just ragdolling them all over the place. But this trio is absolutely one of the most unique relationships ever devised in Pokémon, and not a very well publicized one at that. But the whole Pokémon world is filled with surprising relationships, such as this, that create pairings that you would never imagine on your own. And these are far from the only prominent examples, so which unexpected Pokémon connection surprised you the most? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!